Welcome back to another episode of the Jesus Cartel. One of these days, I think you need to be the first person to talk. I think I always say welcome for the first time. And, we're at like 40 episodes or something like that. We're coming up on the year mark. I think it's about time that, you have those first words.
Welcome to the Jesus Cartel. I'm your host, Clay Russell.
That does not count. And you
With me is Andrew Skull.
You kind of missed the clap almost.
I really felt like I was getting my very best chance, and I did. I felt like I missed the clap.
You did.
Yeah,
it didn't.
It wasn't a good clap.
It's supposed to boom. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yep. So we'll try. Welcome to the Jesus Cartel.
Leave a comment if you whose clap you thought was more proficient. Goodness, that was tough. What's been going on with you?
Things are good. We not got anything major happening right now other than it is Resurrection Week.
Yep.
Inviting people to church. I do feel like that it should be the largest attended Sunday in the history of the universe.
Yeah.
More and more people are coming to Christ. More and more people should be in church together, worshiping God together. So very excited about that. Just because it's an easy sell. Mm-hmm. Hey, come to church on Easter. Everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
And so I am excited about that. But I am also, it's a time to focus on exactly what Jesus did for us, how he did it, why he did it, and what that means to us today.
Yeah.
And not just what he did, with the crucifixion, but also the resurrection. Because, there's a lot to be said about the blood of Jesus, and there's also a lot to be said about the cross and the resurrection.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I had a buddy of mine. I saw him last week sometime, and I hadn't seen him much in the last several years, really. I've probably seen him maybe 5 times in passing over the last 8 or so years. And he pulls his car over when he sees me, and he goes, "Hey, you preached a sermon one Easter about 8, 9, 10 years ago." And he goes, "I'd really like to hear it again." He said, "I never forgot." And I thought that was really cool, man, because it's like, what Jesus did is still so impactful.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It wasn't a fancy sermon. It wasn't a clever sermon. It was just a presentation of what Jesus did. I literally walked through the scripture and talked about that journey from beginning of it all the way to the end. It was a sermon written by a dear friend of mine, and he was my first mentor that I ever had. His name's Steve Spear. He's a pastor at a church called His Church in Pineville, and he wrote this sermon. It's called On His Face, and it basically tackles the 4 elements that you would have found on Jesus' face from the beginning of this to the end of it, which would have been blood, sweat, tears, and spit. And you walk through each of the 4 elements and why they were there and what they represent and kind of how we got to that point. And it's a really, really cool message. And I remember the first time I heard it, it changed my life so that I memorized it. And it's continued to bless people, and that's a cool thing. But all it is just what Jesus went through. There is nothing. There's no cheap frills or anything, like a lot of times people are looking for nowadays, unfortunately. But I thought that was pretty cool. And so, yeah, man, I'm excited about Easter too. Excited to get to see my family. Yep. I don't get to go home a whole lot. Being in ministry, I work the weekends as well as during the week. So it's very, very hard for me to get out of town. But on holidays, we make a special point to go down and get to see everybody. And so that's exciting. My girls are super excited to see some of their cousins and grandparents on that side that they don't get to see a whole lot. And so it's going to be a good week, good weekend. I'm pretty pumped up, man.
Yeah, I am too. It's just a good reminder of what Jesus did for us, but also as a tool to use for other people. Yep. So I'm glad your friend was able to receive that message, and it still mean a lot to him.
Sure, and for whoever you are listening, wherever you're going to church or whatever, you're going to see an influx of people that you either have never seen before, or haven't seen in a really long time, I just want to encourage you to do your due diligence of making connection with those people, so that this could be something that they continue to want to be a part of. Unfortunately, as we've seen evidence of throughout the years, just being really excited that they're there isn't enough to keep them. And so, we're not trying to, I don't ever want to make the church sound like something that needs to accommodate people to keep them there. That's not what I mean. But intimacy is the true desire of the heart. And, if we can make those connections and build intimacy with these families who are new or haven't been in a while, that will push them to deeper intimacy with Jesus. And so just want to encourage everybody to take advantage of the opportunities that they have.
Yeah. Last night I started working on next Sunday's message, and kind of from the viewpoint of just that, it's kind of like how like you preach certain messages on the first Wednesday or the first Sunday of the new year. We're starting something new. This is a new year. Time to get rid of the old and bring in the new, and stuff. And so I just kind of got that idea about next week. Hey, we brought in these people for Easter, for Resurrection Sunday, and now where do we go from here? Not only do where we go as an individual, but where do we go as a church? What is the next step? What is the calling? What is the purpose of even bringing them here anyhow? And so because, there's a lot of things that go on to that. Somebody new comes into church and, and like I said, it's a message for another day, but as people come to church, like you said, you're going to have a great influx. And those people, may really enjoy church, but then they're going to leave church and they're still a real enemy. There's still real problems. There's still real mountains there. There's still issues there. So how are they going to handle it? And you alluded to the fact that one way is by us helping them and discipling them and being there for them. So anyhow, I think that you'll probably hear some of that come out in next week's message too, because the same thing that you just spoke has been on my heart. Hey, it's great for us all to get together, but where we're going to go from here.
Yeah. Praise the Lord, man. That's a good word. I want to go ahead and slide into the get to know you segment question, because it's been heavily debated recently. It's also been heavily debated over the years. And so the question for today is nicknames for your spouse. Do you have any? Are there some nicknames that are not okay? There's some things we shouldn't be calling our spouse. Kind of where is the line? Is it, where do you land on all of that?
Well, I'm a touchy-feely guy. I hug people, kiss them on top of the head. I love people, and I love to show affection.
I'm uncomfortable just hearing you say it.
I understand. And so because of that, there's things that I say that probably shouldn't be said, but just because it's just kind of who I am, I don't mean anything bad about it.
Are there any examples you can share?
Well, I'm sure that, I call my wife Babe a lot.
Okay.
But I also call my daughters Babe a lot.
All right.
And I've probably called people that are real close to me that aren't my daughters and my wife Babe before, Didn't mean anything bad about it, but I probably have. Now, my wife, I usually refer to her as Mama. So once we had children, she become Mama. And so, and I become Daddy. And that's just how we are. And so even in my phone, it says Mama. So when people ask me for Becky's contact,
you send them Mama.
I send them Mama. And because that's who she is. So even though my children are older, and even though they're not always around, she's still Mama. And so my mother had to turn into grandmother.
Yeah.
And so that process all kind of happened at the same time. So I don't call my mom Mama anymore, or mother or whatever. I call her grandmother, because that is who she is. That is her role. That's what she does. And so that's kind of what we do there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's reasonable. I see no issues with that, no quarrels whatsoever. I think that some people would push back a little bit on the fact that your nicknames kind of have shifted towards the roles you perform, but I think that those are reasonable things.
Yeah.
That's what your children call you. It's not like you're calling her the dishwasher, the laundry
Right.
lady or the babysitter.
Right.
Those would not be good. And so I could definitely see how that could be problematic, but that to me all seems really reasonable. I am likewise very matter of fact. Courtney is in my phone as wife, and has been since the day we got married, and I call her wife most of the time, and it's just what happens.
So not wifey, it's wife.
Wife,
I
yeah,
got you.
yeah. I could show you.
I've seen it in your phone.
Yeah, it's
I
plain
was just
Jane.
helping them out.
And there's been a lot of people, because people like to look over your shoulder anytime you're on your phone. There's a lot of people who are like, you really have your wife in your phone as wife? I'm like, what would you like her in there as, And so I've always thought it was interesting. I'm not real big on nicknames and stuff like that. There's a reason for that. So I grew up in a family of people that I don't necessarily know that my family was this way, or if it was just the culture around the people that were around us. My dad's friends and people that I spent a lot of time around as a young man growing up, and everybody's really like honey, baby, sweetie, and it's not to your spouse, it's to any female that's present. And so I kind of adopted that as a young man. And so growing up, those are things that I called any female that I came in contact with. And, you don't mean anything inappropriate by it. That's just kind of is what it is.
Right.
And then I got married, and Courtney never said anything to me about it. I don't know if it bothered her or not, but I recognized it as a problem. I was like, I'm married. I probably shouldn't be calling people, like, it could make her uncomfortable. And so I made an intentional effort early on to really nip that in the bud. And so I just kind of mostly removed those things from my language altogether. If I use them at all, it's usually with like kids that I don't know their name. And it's like the little girl last year, the ballpark, you tell she was just like looking around, didn't know where she was going. I was like, hey, honey, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
That's kind of the extent of those that I use now. And that's just me. I don't have a problem with it. I don't think that there's a right or wrong. Now, there is one particular nickname for spouses and or girlfriends that is more controversial than the rest, and I want to hear what you think about it.
Yeah.
What do you think about people calling their spouse and or girlfriend my old lady?
Yeah, I hate it.
You hate it. Tell me
Yeah,
why you hate it.
100%. Because first off, even the word "my" to me is too much possession. I think that using that in a name is really too much possession. I think it's almost barbaric, or caveman type. My this, and I understand we say my wife and all that, but when you say my old lady, to me, I get possession, and then I get disrespect. Old lady or however you want to say it in the South. So yeah, I find it real disrespectful. Don't like it. Don't think that it's the right thing to do. And really try to encourage people to get past that and not do it, because I really think it's really selfish, self-centered, and putting women down in a pretty bad way. And a lot of the people that we minister to and stuff used to be like that.
Yeah.
So it's not casual. It's not anything that's just okay, this is the way they are. They were really domineering. They were really, would talk down to their spouse or to their girlfriend, or even abuse them, physically or verbally and stuff. And so because we deal with a lot of people that has experienced those things, I think it's important for us to teach them to cherish their wives and their spouses and even their girlfriends and stuff in a way where they try to build them up, not tear them down. So that's my opinion.
Man, that got dark. Got dark fast.
Well, it's one of the things I feel the strongest about.
Yeah, I have heard you come against that many times over the years, so I know that you're not just saying that to try to make a point. I've specifically heard you address that name for women from men multiple times with multiple people. Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, I think that the temptation of the viewer would be like, okay, that's a little much, but like, this is a legitimate stance he takes. This is not random. This is not something he's just saying.
And we
for
had
the
that
episode.
before I had daughters too.
Yeah. And so now me, I am more on the other side of the coin. Just to be honest. Now, there's a caveat that's so important. I treat my wife and love my wife and honor my wife in such a way that I could legitimately call her whatever I wanted, and she would feel tremendously valued. Now, do I call her things that are inappropriate or degrading? No. Do I joke with her intensely about things, about everything? Yes. But I can get away with, I say get away with as if it's a bad thing. That's a foundational point of our relationship is enjoying one another's presence. There's a lot of humor in our relationship. And so, in the sense of having a humorous nickname for one another or to toss those things around, I don't have a problem with those things whatsoever, so long as you're doing your work as the husband in the relationship to make so sure that they feel valued, that these things aren't taken as being put down or aren't taken as something that's hurtful. And on the flip side of that, she call me whatever she wants to call me.
Right.
I don't there's nothing Courtney could possibly say to me that I would be like, I think we might have problems. I think that our relationship might be in a bad spot based on what she just said. She does such a good job of letting me know how much she values me as a husband and as a father to our children. She could call me anything, and I wouldn't bat an eye at it because she does such a good job on the front end of our relationship, making sure that I know how important I am to her. And so you have to have that type of relationship to have an overbearing humor in the relationship. It doesn't have to be that strong to have some humor. But if you're going to be, I'm somebody that really enjoys humor. And to have the level of humor that I like in a relationship, you better have everything buttoned up tight. Because if there's any window of insecurity that she has because of the way that I've treated her, that humor will turn to insult. And so I guess I would say you can do it, but you are kind of playing a dangerous game.
Yeah, so I got a lot of comments on that. Number one, why play a dangerous game? There are things that she could say to you and you wouldn't get offended, but there are also things that she could say to you that would make you feel better. Because no matter how secure your relationship is, there is room for improvement. And not only from actions, but also from words. It takes both, and there is both, okay? So, the words and the actions both matter. And so whereas y'all may be real secure and there's nothing that she can call you that makes you feel insecure, but there are things that she can say about you or call you to make you even better. No matter what level we're at. I can think of something that Becky said to me just the other day that just happened to make me feel better, even though I already knew she felt that way, but just saying it. Another thing is that the people that I've heard refer to the women in their life as old ladies, none of them, over the years, I can't think of one, showed something different than that in their actions to such a great degree that it nullified the word that come out of their mouth. Okay, so all the people that I've seen treated their women the way they spoke.
Yeah, it seems more cultural than a nickname.
Right. Yeah. So it's a cultural issue. They saw their daddy do it, their grandma do it, or whatever. But also, looking back at it, your daddy was abusive too.
Sure.
I mean, he might not hit them or whatever, but just being demeaning is abuse. And so I think that the people that I've seen, which has been way too many, people use those terms, also to some degree, their actions lined up with their words. Their actions were so much different than the words that the words didn't hurt. It all went together. Another issue is that, you take Courtney, for instance. Courtney was raised by really good people, okay, that loved her and honored her and built her up her entire life, Yeah. And I mean, her daddy's, one of the greatest men in our area, Nobody's going to argue with how great Richie Kelly is, right? Yeah. And so we know that he built his daughters up, and he raised 3 wonderful daughters. And so because of that, then she is real secure. Yeah. Because she grew up that way. And then you're coming in as a husband and you're adding more security and more love and more cherishing to her. And so she's not going to question it, even if you did say something wrong or called her a name that whatever, you want to say. But not everybody grew up that way. So we may be saying something that triggers a traumatic experience that we don't even know about, and we're just being cute or funny or having laughter in our relationship or whatever. But if we don't know what all they've been through and we don't understand the trauma and where it come, something real simple could become real big. And you might not be having a relationship with your spouse that you think you should have, and it could just be based on that. And it's not really based on what you're doing. It's a response to something that happened as a younger person that you might be unaware of or don't appreciate enough. And then you're just adding a little fuel to the fire. And then all of a sudden, now she's really not trusting you or trusting that you cherish her or honor her enough. And it's not 100% on what you did. It could be dealing with something from the past. And so we need to be real careful with that too. Sure. We all like to joke and have a good time and do those kind of things. But also, when we're talking about intimate relationships, we got to understand each other to a great degree. Yeah. I think I've said it on here before, but just to repeat, my wife doesn't want me to wash the dishes. That's just not what she wants me to do. Sure. A lot of women do. My wife doesn't. But I can honor her by going in there while she's washing the dishes. And hug her from the back or pat her on the butt or just sitting there on the counter and talk to her, and tell her, hey, talk about her day. Yeah. I don't even have to talk about being happy that she's washing the dishes. Yeah. Just being in there with her is something that makes her happy. So anyhow, don't call your women old ladies. Yeah. Because I'm going to go behind them and tell them that you're not honoring them.
Yeah, there's one more thing about that I want to address, just because it's something that I have encountered, and it's tricky. Being someone like me, who is, I pretty much am always smiling. I'm always laughing. I play and I just enjoy people. One of the difficulties that Courtney and I had early on is that it seemed like I enjoyed other people more than I enjoyed her. And so that was the reason that I had to find a way to lighten up our relationship a little bit. It wasn't that I was dishonoring her in any way, but it was by me being so much less relaxed and less able to joke and have the level of relationship that we had. It made her feel like I preferred to be around other people. Yeah. And it wasn't just my guy friends. It was like we'd hang out with people around the church and my buddies' wives and stuff like that, and I'd laugh and pick and play with them. And she's like, man, it just seems like we don't joke like that, you know? And so that was something that she desired. And so, to people that are in relationships like that, which there's nothing wrong with that, for your wife to want to be, enjoyed. That's a good thing. But that's what I'm saying. You have to do an astronomical job on the end of honor, reverence, and value for you to be able to do that. You cannot do it without it. Right. It will create a whole nother situation for you that won't be good. And so, and now we're at a point in our relationship, have been for some time, and we just really enjoy each other and enjoy getting to spend time and hanging out together, and we pick and we play and we laugh and we have fun, and everybody feels valued. And I'm not someone who wants to hear affirmations. It's just not a thing for me. You'd be like, man, I just think that you're the best at that. I'm like, cool, thanks. But it just doesn't sit with me. Yeah, and words have just always kind of been words to me.
But if Courtney tells you, you made me feel good because you did this, then you do take that in as a positive. Yeah. Because you made her feel good.
That's right.
So you're not worried about words making you feel good. But if she told you something that you recognize that you made her feel good,
sure,
then it's cool.
Correct.
So and then the deal you're talking about, Courtney, and joking and stuff. And so with mine and Becky, our experience, it was totally the opposite. I'm used to hanging around the guys all day. Even the girls that we grew up with were like guys, you grew up in the country, and so we're all joking and playing and all that and everything. And then I meet Becky, and she's really nice and everything, but she's real reserved. And I was the opposite of reserved. And so for a little while, I really thought that it was my role in life to get her out of her comfort zone. And so I tried really, really hard to do that. So if we're at Walmart and she's buying groceries or whatever, I would start taking stuff off of the little belt and throwing it out in the middle of Walmart. Because number one, I was stupid.
That was a very Joe Reasonover thing to do.
I was way better than Joe, way before he even come along. I was way gone with tech and the rusting area before he ever got there. But anyhow, I really thought that, because what it was is we would see her friends in the mall, and she wouldn't hardly even acknowledge them. Well, I didn't want them to feel like, well, that's because she's with Clay. Because I wanted to acknowledge them. I wanted to go hug them. I wanted to tell them, hey, we're happy that we saw you at the mall. Can I buy you some Chick-fil-A? That's just the way I was. But she wouldn't even give them the whole, chin up deal.
Oh, no. No chin up?
No chin up.
What about a nod down?
No. She would act like they didn't exist. And so I'd be like, ain't that your friends right there? And she's like, yeah, I know that. So I'd go say hey to them and everything, and she wouldn't say much. And it wasn't that she didn't like them at all. It was just her focus, was on me. And it wasn't her time with them. It was her time with me. And she wanted to enjoy her time with me. And I understand that. But then it went to me, joking with her too much and trying to make fun of her too much and different things like that. And I realized that, and I don't know if I realized it because she told me or if I realized it through the Holy Spirit. I'm not sure. She could probably tell us. But God basically convinced me that he did not put me on this earth to make her open up more and to make her loosen up more.
That's good.
And to make her joke. And he said, I made her this way, and you're trying to change her.
Yeah.
He said, now I gave you friends that you can joke and play and cut up with and all that and everything, but this one's different. And so that just, it wasn't her personality. Now there's a lot of other people that it is their personality.
Sure.
And it's cool and everything, but with her it wasn't their personality. Now over the years, has she loosened up a lot more? Sure she has, and more secure in our relationship, secure in who she is in Christ. Learned a lot more about, who she is and who God is and those kind of things. And so, now we can do those things, but at first, I really thought that it was that this is what God called me to do, and I was wrong.
Yeah.
And God said, "Hey, I made her. Let me do my work in her instead of you trying to do your work."
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, quick point of clarification for the ladies. If a man sees a man he doesn't know but wants to acknowledge that he has a mutual respect for him, he will do a nod downward as a pass. If a man sees a man he does know and wants to greet them without stopping but acknowledge the fact that he respects them and is glad to see him, he'll do a slight nod upward. And so if you see those things, women, that's what's happening. You can kind of maybe that'll be a help for you to gauge what's happening. And then just in passing, I want to say, because anytime we have a conversation around this, I think it's important, do not create a culture where you degrade your spouses in front of your friends or with your friends, even if your spouse isn't there. That does not need to be the culture you set within your people. Is let's get together and talk about how crappy our spouse is.
Yeah.
That's just don't.
Yeah, we could talk all day about that.
Just don't.
But something, when you were talking about the acknowledging and stuff, something I do want to mention that, because I have a 16-year-old son, and lots of things are bro and bruh, and even teenage girls don't need to be called bro. They just don't. They even respect teenage girls.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get it from somebody. They need to get it from the good people for the right reasons. So,
sure, yeah, man.
All right,
I'm gonna not dive off into that. I want to though. I want to. So last week we talked about renewing your mind, some particular things that we renew our mind about,
yes,
and how those kind of impact and affect us. And man, I really enjoyed having that conversation from my perspective. I've had it a couple times in the last few weeks, and it's really I feel like illuminated some other things in my relationship with the Lord. It's been really valuable to me. Got some decent response, but I'm also really excited about our point for this episode, or I say point because it's not necessarily a question, it's more of a topic.
Okay.
But there's a lot of discussion happening about the different generations, right? And you and I are in different generations. There's also a generation coming of age right now that's under me. They're not part of our generation. And then we have a generation above you. And so we really are operating primarily in 4 different sections of types of people, or people that were raised a particular way. There's all the time a discussion or argument on who is the greatest generation, who ultimately will end up accomplishing the most. As they already, gone beyond their prime and will just never meet up to what they're doing, or is the generation under me going to eventually end up curb stomping all of us? And I think the general consensus, correct me if I'm wrong, is that hard work kind of, not completely, but kind of stopped with your generation. And, that was kind of the maybe not necessarily the pinnacle, maybe the pinnacle, but it was around the time where hard work still had an extremely high value, and work ethic was something that was just immensely important. And then you trickle down into my generation where we're kind of split. We got some that teeter more towards the way that your generation was raised, and then we have some that kind of are more tailored towards the way the new generation is coming up. And so there's all sorts of different opinions on that. And I'm going to just leave it broad to open up, and we'll kind of narrow in on some things later. But what kind of is your opening thoughts on the different generations and what we're seeing?
Yeah. So the generation before me, prided themselves on hard work and everything, but my generation, with computers and advances and stuff, was more of a mixture of hard work and innovation. So I think that we have been, the generation that is mixing the two real well. So we're able to use the technology, use things to be more efficient, use things to be better, but also believe a lot in work ethic, And so it was funny that this is today's topic, because this morning you and I were working out, and there was somebody that was in there. It's a good friend of mine that I'm not used to working out with, and while we're working out, we start talking about business and real estate and different things like that. We both, I'm more into houses and stuff. He's more into land. I respect what he does. He respects what I do, and we like to nerd out with each other on business things.
Yes, they do.
Even while and today was the first time we've seen each other in a while, so we were able to kind of talk about those things. But then I made the comment. I said, well, he said he enjoyed the conversation because at his workplace, which he owns a business, he can't really have those conversations. And I said, yeah, those people at your work not really into real estate and business and all that and everything. He said, no. He said, they're really not. And he said, even my daughters, have questions and, not really there yet. And I said, well, that's the reason why I like hanging out with Andrew, because, he's somebody in the generation below us that has the same work ethic that we do. But there's a lot of people, most people, that don't have the same work ethic. And what we're referring to is everything we were talking about was our side hustle.
Yep.
Which we have a lot of money and
which is
time
more than
and
most
work.
people's full-time jobs,
Right.
realistically.
That's right.
Yeah.
We have a
I
lot
know both
more
of
to
you
that.
very well, and it's a significant amount of work in what y'all do as a secondary job.
That's right. And so that's kind of what we're referring to, because, he runs I hate to say the word small business, but a large small business daily, and I run a large nonprofit and everything. And then on the side, we have a side hustle where we enjoy real estate and business and things like that. And we recognize that both of us work really hard. And so I just said it's refreshing to hang out with somebody like Andrew that is younger and of the next generation, but has the same kind of work ethic that we do, not just content with, working for the man 8 to 5 and being done,
Yep.
but having stability and then doing things outside of that stability. And so I guess, and then we get here, and here's the conversation for today. And I guess I do see that the generation below mine doesn't seem to value hard work as much as my generation does. I think they value the efficiency more, which is a good thing. A lot of them try to be as efficient as possible, it seems. They try to be as efficient as possible to get as much done in a small amount of time. But then a lot of them seem, quite frankly, just seem lazy to me. Compared to they seem like they don't care about having a lot of nice stuff. They don't care about, moving forward in life as much, and they just feel like, hey, as long as we got this, we're okay. And I'm generalizing big time right here. But it just seems like that. It seems like you see a lot of people younger than me living with less than you do the people that are my age.
Yeah.
And at first you can say, well, it's just because they're young and they haven't acquired it yet. But I mean, I'm 47, so we're talking about people in their mid-30s and stuff that are just living on a lot less than what people my age think. Even the guy that we were talking to this morning, Will, he said, it takes a lot of money and a lot of capital to live these days. What I mean? That's our mentality. But then there seems like there's a younger generation that their mentality is, well, as long as I do without, I really don't have to make that much. And if I don't have to make that much, then I can spend more time doing what I want to do instead of what I have to do. And like I said, we are generalizing, but I do see a lot of that.
Sure. And for the record, I put a lot of effort forth into the stuff that I'm doing, but I don't really have a problem with people who are saying, I don't want to work hard, but I also don't want to have much.
Right.
I really don't have a problem with those people. Just to be honest, I have a huge problem with the ones that say I don't want to work hard and want to have the world. But the ones that are just kind of like, hey, look, I recognize how hard it is out there to, accumulate wealth and get stuff, and I'm just not really into that. I'd much rather just kind of take it easy and wander. It's like, hey, if that's your flavor, I'm okay with that. Yeah. I really am. As strange as that may sound. But
I'm not mad at that person,
Sure.
but I don't understand it.
Likewise, likewise. It is totally foreign to me.
Right.
I'm not trying to accumulate great wealth or things or anything
Right.
like that to have stuff. I'm trying to create wealth so that my children have opportunities not to do things I didn't do or to have things I didn't have, but so they have opportunities to set things up better for their children and their children. And so I'm trying to teach my children how to have resources that I don't have access to. I don't want them dependent on anyone, anybody, anything. And so I don't think I can be, I don't think I can be. I'm going to continue to try. But it's going to be very difficult for me to make my family completely non-dependent on anyone in any circumstance right now. If there's a Great Depression in 50 years, will we have what we need to be able to sustain and flourish? I don't know that I can pull that off. But if I do really, really well, I bet my kids can. You see what I'm saying? And so those are the reasons that I'm working so hard. I don't want my children to struggle. Like they need land. They need livestock. They need to know how to grow things. They need to know how to hunt. They need to know how to fish. They need to know how to work and repair the things that they're buying, that they're taking care of. It's a lot to learn, and it's a lot to do. And it takes a lot of resources to acquire those resources. And so all of that can be done. But I want my people generations from now to be able to enjoy their life, live their life, and work hard, and not have to be dependent on the government to bail them out when they're in a bind, not be dependent on the banks when they need money for something, but to be able to do those things on their own. And for that to happen, I have to work really, really hard right now. And I care enough about my grandkids that I don't know yet to work really, really hard right now. And so I think that, there's a couple of things with each generation that I'd like to talk about. Do you want me to go one at a time, or do you want me to hit all four with one sentence?
You
then
do what you want to do.
Okay, so let me just hit all four, and let me just say that kind of a problem that I see overall. So the youngest generation that is coming of age right now, I think that what I see a lot of them, mind you, I've been doing youth ministry for a long time, and so I've got a real close look at this, is their mindset. Be innovative so that I don't have to work hard. If I can be innovative enough, I won't have to work hard, all right? My generation was told this: to have any job worth its salt, you have to go to college. And then while we were at college, they say, hey, you're young, don't get serious about anything too fast. So they sent us off into this college setting and then told us not to take it serious. And so this is the prime of your life. Go party, go have a good time, go do all these things. So they sent a massive mixed signal to my generation, and it pulled so many people away from trades because we were told that was poor people's jobs. Poor people are tradesmen. And so obviously, I come from a family that knew better, but most people didn't, and this is what they're being fed. And so this was kind of how it started with my generation. And then your generation, this is kind of what I see there, is that through the backbone of the work ethic that you received, y'all did really well and just being legitimate. And then innovation and technology came along and allowed you to flourish a little more. But the mistake that your generation made was enabling my generation. So because you did so well, we didn't have to. And a lot of your people in your generation allowed us to become lazy. They didn't make us work hard anymore. And then we have the oldest generation that's still hanging in there, too frustrated at anybody from my generation to want to even deal with them. And so what they have is an opportunity to really provide some excellent mentorship, but they're not doing it because they're so frustrated at what we have kind of let everything become, that rather than try to pick up and play that role of mentor, let's see who I can impact and affect to get it back on track, they're just like, to heck with them. If this is how they are, And so that's just kind of a general overview of how I think that we ended up where we are. What are your thoughts on any of those?
Yeah, so let's start at the first one.
Okay, be innovative so that you don't have to work hard.
Yeah, I didn't want to call it the bottom. I wanted to call it the first one. So here's the issue I got, and I understand being innovative so you don't have to work hard. I understand that, but here's the deal. Unlike most people in this world, I don't like the underdog.
Me neither. I'm with you, brother.
Yeah, I don't like the underdog.
I root for the villains in the movies.
Yeah. I'm not the guy that wants to see the team that isn't the good athletes, that hasn't put in the time, that doesn't work hard, that just got together, the bad news bears. What? That's not. I don't want to see them beat the team that should be winning.
Yeah.
I don't. And so we see a lot of that in this younger generation, to where we see these influencers that really haven't done anything right, a lot of times. And now they're making millions of dollars, and then, but what kind of precedents are they setting for these people, So, just like, everybody wants to be an athlete, but they're not putting in the time to be an athlete. Well,
Yep.
These influencers are making as much money or more as athletes, and they're not even putting in the time and the work and stuff a lot of times.
Yep.
Now some of them are, but most of them aren't. And so, you get recognized because you're real good at playing this video game, or, this or whatever, or you went to this place. And so I think it's really hurting our young people, putting false hope in them that, that the majority of the people that make it are making it this way. So I think that's difficult. Now, there are some that are making a fortune being an influencer, and it is innovative, and it is something that is desirable, and it is something that you're like, man, kudos to you. If you can make that kind of money doing that, hey, go get them,
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, I want to see people do good, but I think it really does hurt the vast majority of the people, so I think this generation is going to be real lopsided in the haves and have-nots.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a great divide into, the majority of the wealth compared to, more of an average deal.
That's right.
And then, in your generation, in that area, like we said, I do believe that our generation worked really hard, and then you got a lot of people that were kind of spoiled in the generation below because of that. And so you got, a lot of issues there and different things that happen. Now, one of the main things I see wrong with my generation is, hey, they worked hard and they, used technology and grew up and went up the ladder and that kind of stuff. But I think one of the main problems in my generation is there's so much divorce.
Ooh.
That it really negated a lot of that. So, on one side, you got women that, hey, I can do anything that a man does, and moving up in corporate. And in my generation, you had a lot of that, to where women start doing, different things and doing it well. But a lot of them had to do it because of relationship issues and divorce, or it caused those issues.
Yeah.
So, whereas my generation should be really strong because of work ethic and desire and technology and all those things, I don't see it as being as strong as it could have been because of divorce.
Yep.
Something we hadn't really talked about on here too much, but is that, I own a fair amount of rental property. And so I'm in that area, and all of my rental properties all stay rented all the time.
Yep.
And so somebody asked me, they said, was there just a big shortage of rental properties? And I was in Africa last year, and God said, no, it's not a shortage of rental properties, even though there's a lot higher demand than it is supply. He said, but there's not a shortage of rental properties. There's a shortage of people staying married.
Oh, yeah.
And so these people are getting divorced, and I'm having to provide 2 houses
Yeah.
where it should be 1, you know.
right.
So if everybody stay together and do what God intended them to be, we'd have enough rental properties and enough houses. But because we're having to live 2 separate lives because we can't get along with each other, that's why the demand is much higher than the supply. So I think that's something major wrong in my generation.
So as somebody who owns a bunch of rental properties, is there a part of you that hopes that the divorces continue so that you can?
No, there is no part of me.
Yeah, me
in that.
neither.
No, it's not, and I don't want people to be held back from doing whatever God calls them to do in any way.
Yeah.
But that is an issue.
Sure.
that we see.
Well, what about the older generation?
I'm trying to come up with something that I could say about them. That's the reason why they put me last, because really I don't like old people, but I don't think that we're talking about old people. I think we're just talking about the generation above me.
Sure.
And so the generation above me, I think, taught my generation a lot.
Yeah.
I think that they taught my generation a whole lot about, we keep saying hard work and work ethic, but even stuff like you can ride in the back end of a truck and be okay.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to wear your seatbelt all the time, or you can rub some dirt on it, and get up, or different things like that. I think that generation taught us some grit and some determination and those things, because the way I grew up, it was kind of like every man for himself type deal.
Sure.
And my mama makes a joke that when new people come over to eat, she'll make a joke and say, hey, now you better get in line or there might not be any food left.
Yeah.
Now there's always going to be plenty of food, but it was a mentality, that was instilled in us, is that if you don't go get it, there might not be none to be got.
Nothing's coming.
And I think this generation below us has been spoon-fed everything and just thinks that they're just going to have it given to them no matter what.
Yeah.
And then this next generation below them thinks that it's just manna that comes from the heavens, and so it's difficult. So I think the generation below me, a lot of them, like we talked about, are intent with having very little. But then I think the generation below them aren't intent with having very little. They just suspect to have the more without always putting in the work.
Sure.
So.
And so I think that there's going to be a drastic similarity between the oldest generation that we have right now, and not the young generation we're talking about, but the ones under them. I think that we're going to see a drastic similarity between those two because of the position that it's ultimately everything's driving into. And there's an old saying, that hard times create hard men, and then hard men create good times, and then good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And so the cycle kind of repeats itself, and we've seen this happen all throughout history, world history, everything. Think about how many times, in world history class, you'd read about just this incredible conqueror with this weak son,
Right.
And it's because everything's conquered. He doesn't have to be rough and tough. He doesn't have to be anything. And as bad as the dad wants him to be that, he can't be that because he doesn't see the need for it, because everything is conquered. And so then he takes control and loses everything that was, and then it all cycles itself back around. And so ultimately, I think that we're at the point where we have coming up right now, and this is not as a whole. This is not an indictment on any of these people as an individual, but overall, the group underneath me, the generation underneath me as a whole, is weak men, and they're being continually emasculated. We see this in culture, we see this in the entertainment industry, and they're being told that this is right and this is good and it's okay, and they're just really weak. And so ultimately, hard times are coming, because soon, very soon, they will be at the helm of control of everything. And when weak men are in control, times are going to get very difficult very fast. And so that will shove the generation underneath them into being hard men who have to do more to get it back in order. And so And I think that, as far as this young generation and the TikTok and the YouTube and all the different things that we see these influencers using to infiltrate the minds of these students, I think that we as adults have a responsibility to be realistic with these kids. And I don't think enough people are. There's too many people telling them it's possible.
Yeah.
You could be a TikTok influencer or whatever they're called. And it's not that it's not possible. But there's a big difference in impossible and improbable. And when something is improbable, it doesn't mean because there's just the slightest sliver of possibility that this is my best move. It's not your best move. You might put yourself so many years behind chasing something that is nearly, not unattainable, but nearly unattainable. And so when you look at the percentages of people that actually reach that pinnacle of wealth in those fields, you're talking about the same percentage of people that play professional baseball.
Yeah.
There's a reason I'm not still trying to go pro in the MLB right now. It is improbable on every level. Not impossible, just improbable on every fundamental level. So I'm not wasting my time because there's just the slightest 0.0001% chance that maybe I could pull it off if I learn a wicked knuckleball at 32 years old and try to get back in the game. It doesn't make any sense. And so the chances of that happening are almost zero. And we've got to be realistic with kids and say, hey, look, have fun with it. Let this be something that you do on the side, but this cannot be your thing.
Right.
And I don't think there's enough conversations like that happening.
I agree. And, one thing just to add to that is, so we see social media and we see, all these influencers stuff, and we look at it and it's creative because it's innovative, and so, and so it's creative. And so you see the creativity there. But then that same generation is so suppressed thinking that everything's got to look like this.
Yep.
And if you're not doing this, then you're missing out. You got FOMO and all these things happening there. And so it's like you're so controlled on what you can think, because if you think something too far right, anything, then you're a bigot or whatever. And you think anything over here, then you're just bleeding heart person. And so it's creative, but then it's very controlled.
Yeah.
Whereas the generation that was before me wasn't going to be controlled by nobody.
Yeah.
We're going to burn the flag. We're going to burn it all down. We're going to do what we want to do, regardless. And so we got some of that in our generation. That's where the riding in the back of the truck and putting some dirt on it and all that, because they're like, man, if what all we didn't kill us, then, us raising our kids this way sure ain't going to hurt them. It's going to make them tough, you know. But so you had that generation that was just, wild and somewhat careless, you know. And then our generation, kind of got that, that grit and determination, but kind of wrangled it in a little bit. And then, like you said, the next generation below us, they had it so easy that, a lot of them, just choose to not work hard and not how much. And then this younger generation, I think, has some false ideas that everything's going to be okay no matter what. Yeah. And so it's a little difficult.
And in fairness to the youngest generation, they don't know what hard work is. They've not experienced it. And so things like that are subjective to people. Their version of hard work is hard to them.
Yes.
Because it's the most output they've had to put forth. But they haven't been in the position of hard times, And so they're not having to work that hard to get to mediocrity. They're not having to work that hard to put food on the table. They're not even putting food on the table yet. They're just coming into that place. And so that's not entirely their fault.
Right, and I appreciate you bringing that up, know, and not just their generation, but even the generation above them. I hear people say all the time, it's like, hey, man, what you been doing? Man, I just been working, man. That's all we do. That's what we work. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, you got a 40-hour week job.
Yeah.
you don't have any side business, you don't have a part-time job, you don't have a side hustle. You got, you're raising one kid, not 3 or 4 kids. You got a wife that's helping you with it. Don't see you volunteering, coaching and stuff.
Yeah.
You're not that involved in church, so you got a lot of that going on. But in their mind, they're working hard.
Yeah.
Like couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of them are that way. Other ones that know me, I'm like, okay, you want to trade?
Yeah.
You want to trade my life for yours?
Yeah.
My work for your work? And if they know me at all, they're all going to say no.
Yeah.
Because if they wanted to have what I have and be where I'm at and do those things, they would be working towards that. Mm-hmm. They're not working towards that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that they should have what I have or whatever, but they should be working towards it if that's what they desire. But real quick, you find out if they know how much hard work it takes to get there or not. Is what I'm trying to say. And then they make that decision. But like you said, for them, they are working hard. But their level of hard work and other people's level of hard work is not the same.
Yep. And in 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's not half your time. That's not half the time you have. And and I think that ultimately just comes back down to 2 things. One, what do you really want? And what are you really trying to accomplish out of life? Because if the thing that you really want isn't that great, you really don't have any reason to push harder.
Right.
Like if all you want, man, it'd be nice to have a little bit bigger house. You're not going to work any harder.
That's a dream, not a goal.
Yeah, I mean, that's who cares really? If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We can manage. That doesn't push you forward. That's why I'm doing this for my children and their children. That to me is worth my time. It really is. Now the balance there is my children are alive right now, and I'm here, and they need a dad too, and so I've got to find a way to make both work. But I'm up 3.5 hours before I have to be at work in the morning. Most people don't set their alarm 3.5 hours before they have to be at work, but you can. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. You're just not, and so that's a consideration. My preparations start well before anyone else is up, for the most part. And I have friends that I can, when I wake up at 3:30, I can text them. I know they're awake too. I know who those people are. Those are the go-getters. And so it's just figure out what you want and then figure out how bad you want it. And if you can figure out those 2 things, then you'll be able to. It's discipline, not motivation. If you know what you want and you understand how bad you want it, that will create for you the discipline you need to accomplish it. And it
influences people around you.
Oh, sure.
I mean, how many bosses do you know show up at 6:45 every morning?
Yeah.
But at the same time, how many places of business have you ever seen where almost everybody's there by 7?
Yeah. Yeah. Very few.
And so everybody that works for us, that works daytime, is there by 7. Why? Because their boss is there by the end or before. So you create a culture.
That's right.
You create a culture by people being around you, but you also create a culture of for your children and your grandchildren. I wish that we had people at Fresh Start that would come in 8 to 4.
Yeah.
Or 9 to 5, because then it would strengthen us longer. So our admin or whatever strength would be 7 to 5 instead of 7 to 3. But because I come in 7 to 3, everybody wants to work 7 to 3. That's not something that I've ever, told people I want you to work these hours or whatever. Like I said, I wish other people would work 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 or whatever, because it would strengthen us longer. But you create a culture around you. Well, same thing with your children. Your children aren't going to be satisfied with just working 40 hours a week. They're going to see it. And the reason I can speak to that is because my children aren't. And Lisa's got a great job in Dallas. making more money than her daddy makes.
Yep.
You know, saving more money than she was saving when she was in Ruston. I didn't even know that. I asked her this weekend. So, are you able to save any money? Because it costs a lot more to live in Dallas. She makes more money in Dallas, but it costs more to live there. And she goes, yeah, Dad, I am able to save more. But one of the main reasons is because my side business is just keeps getting better and better. You know, and she's not even trying to promote it, but at the same time, she's still working her side business and working it well. You know, now per hour, she makes more money in her side business than she does in her regular business, you know, in her job. But she also understands the importance of working for somebody else, meeting their deadlines, doing what they've asked you to do, and then also working for yourself in another way and profiting more. So she understands both.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like tithes and offerings, understanding the importance of both. It's not just money, it's also in our jobs and stuff. And so she understands that too. You know, her regular job is more like her tithe, and then her side business that she had is more of the offering. You know, and it's the regular business is what is required to pay her bills and to do what she's supposed to do, and then the side business is what allows her to do above and beyond that for other people, for herself, for you know, for generations to come. And so she has a good understanding of both. Well, why? Her mom and daddy have both, and so we've been able to influence her in that way.
Yeah. What a wonderful thing, man.
We've done pretty good today, haven't we?
Yeah, and man, I do want to say in all of this, because it's easy to be on the wrong side of it. I do want to say I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for the future. I'm hopeful for the future generations. I'm not somebody who thinks that you know, we're doomed. I think that we're at the bottom. I think we're at the weakest part of a cycle that ultimately does flip itself over. And so I'm hopeful for the future and the generations that are coming.
Well, and you know, and we can get into this more later, but Becky and our mindset is to teach our kids hard work, to teach them the importance of a good education, to teach them to not have to be dependent on other people and what they do, even though there are times that you are dependent, but you don't have to be.
Yep.
And to help them get started without being in a deficit, and give them a hope for a future.
Praise God.
But our mindset isn't to create generational wealth based on what we do.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to work so hard that my grandkids never have to.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is find the balance between working real hard, letting our kids see all these things, and helping them to create a good life for themselves.
Yeah.
In every way possible. But we're not trying to do it in a way where they don't have to do those things and they still get to live a higher lifestyle.
That's right.
You know, and I think that's where you find the balance, because if, you know, like you said earlier, you know, hey, I want to do these things and I'm doing these things. At the same time, I have kids right now. Well, you need to be able to influence your kids right now, and not worry so much about your grandkids, but be able to influence your kids right now. But there is a balance. There's a balance, and that you can do to help your grandkids while being very influential in your children's lives too.
That's right.
You know, if there's anybody out there, and you know, if you can help your children to not go in such debt going to college, and not go in such debt getting married, you know, I mean, you don't have to go to private school, you know, and pay that extra money. You can get married in a church. You don't have to go get married in a $10,000 venue all the time. You know, you can have your aunt that's really good at making cakes make your cake. You know, there's things that you can do to really help your children without going over the top. You know, and that you can really teach them. And I think that's something that y'all do real well of, is making your kids feel real important without making your kids feel like they had to have everything, but yet your kids don't feel like they're lacking anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we've done well with too, and that y'all do a really good job with also.
Well, hey, look, I'm good, man. You got anything else?
I'm good.
All right. Y'all be good.